back to the Dean Obeidallah Show. Right now, very happy to have Rula Jabreal back on, an award-winning journalist specialized in foreign affairs, visiting professor at the University of Miami, and more. Rula, thank you for being here, my friend.
Thank you, Dean. So good to see you. You look blonde, man.
I can tell you, it's not blonde at all. It's just the settings on the new camera here. It goes from darker one day to lighter.
Looks good on you. Looks good on you.
It's not blonde. So let's talk about, but it's nice to have some humor before we start, because we have a lot of darkness to talk about here.
Yes.
Can you share with people, because right now, Netanyahu is talking about going into Rafah, and they've begun a little bit, but what's the humanitarian situation so people understand in Gaza right now in the area of Rafah?
So to understand what happened, I think we need to go back 7 months ago. Israel declared their objective as total eradication of Hamas and told the people who lived in Khan Yunis, in Gaza City, and others that the only safe place or the only safe zone would be for them to go to the south, which is Rafah. So everybody moved to the south. 1.5 million people out of 2.3 million moved to the south. And slowly, Israel decimated completely the area between the north and the south. And the last city is Rafah, where you have 1.5 million people. Basically, it's a tent city. There's no hospitals. There's no schools. Israel obliterated 70% of the homes. They're destroyed. There's no schools. All of them are destroyed, bombed to oblivion, university, hospitals, civilian infrastructure. United Nations said to rebuild Gaza, it will take them 80 years. Israel dropped 75,000 bombs in 7 months. This is 20 times the amount of bombs that were dropped by the United States in Iraq in the first 6 years of the war, just to understand the magnitude. Plus, they're using these kind of bombs that we call dumb bombs, or the 2,000-ton bombs. Those have a blast radius of 1/4 mile. The kill rate is something that the United Nations indicate as a kill rate that they've been seeing something like this the last time in Rwanda. The highest kill rate on earth in the last 7 months, 40,000 people were killed, 15,000 children. So for the first time, plus they're using starvation as a weapon of war. As of today, there's no food at all over Gaza, because they invaded the Rafah crossing. They took over and controlled it. And Egypt just told Israel that they will not be able to deliver anything from their own crossing on the other side unless Israel gives them guarantee that they're not going to bomb their convoys. So now Israel occupied Gaza. Now it's a reality of total occupation. They control all the crossing borders, all the checkpoints, everything. And they inform the civilians who are already starved. And according to the United Nations, hundreds of thousands of children are either diseased, sick, maimed, and starving and malnourished. So you have a situation that's already catastrophic. If Israel completely invade and start bombing indiscriminately, as they did in the last 7 months, we might see 3 things. First, you will see hundreds of thousands of people will be killed, hundreds of thousands. They will allow only women and children to leave. And we saw them kill women and children with, snipers killing them with bullets to the back of the head. We are discovering even now, as we speak, multiple mass graves all over Gaza, especially in hospitals. They transformed hospitals into basically mass graves. So, and they will keep the men of a fighting age. Remember, fighting age for Israel is 14-year-old, meaning any boy that's 14-year-old and above is considered an enemy combatant and will be executed. If you look at the demographic of Gaza, you have 600,000 children already in Rafah. It's a city of children. Then you have women, and then you have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of men. If you're going to invade, ground invasion on top of bombing using those dumb bombs that already Israel has, you're going to see the mass slaughter escalating to a level that I think the last time we've seen anything like this, you have to look at Dresden in comparison, which is during World War II. Mm-hmm. So, and my biggest fear there's 3 consequences. I think the Egyptians are already so frustrated, and they are questioning the peace accord that they have with Israel. They're saying, look, we're informing you, we have no love for Hamas, we fought the Muslim Brotherhood, but you're breaking the treaty here. And the treaty include actually Rafah, how to operate in Rafah. Secondly, and I think we're seeing, and Avril Lavigne talked about, and I think William Burns, the CIA, the head of CIA, talked about mass radicalization and the potential of terrorism basically blowing up across the Middle East, across the region, but also across the world. Europe is a target. You know, they have the G7 now in Italy in June. In July, they have the Olympics in Paris. So I would look at that because the signal has been sent to the global south. The only language we'll speak to you is a language of violence. And the answer would be more violence. You're not eradicating Hamas. You might kill all the combatants, all the fighters, but the political leadership is in Qatar, in Doha. The political leadership happens to be also in Turkey. You're not going to decimate Hamas. You are creating a generation of people who are so upset and so angry and so radicalized, and they want vengeance. Israel continued to say that they have the right to deploy vengeance and discriminate killing, but they are now under scrutiny. And for the first time, you have two courts, the ICC and the International Court of Justice, who are calling them out on their war crimes. And Israel's reaction, everybody is pro-Hamas, including Joe Biden this morning.
It is remarkable. So I had Senator Bernie Sanders on last week, and he said he believes that the Israeli leadership, Netanyahu, is trying to make Gaza unlivable, so that no one can.
He did already.
And that, so do you think it's already, do you think that was part of the plan? The intent is to make it unlivable?
He did it already. He achieved that goal. The only goal that he achieved is not eradicating Hamas, actually strengthening Hamas, something that he already did before October 7 by sending his CIA director, Yossi Cohen, to lobby the Qataris to finance Hamas. So he strengthened Hamas directly and indirectly, financing Hamas in the past, and now by bumbling into oblivion, everybody in Gaza, leading to basically increasing and strengthening the brand of Hamas, the ideology of Hamas, the whole idea that the only language is violence and will speak to you through violence. Thirdly, if you are, Dean, realistically, anybody of us who live in a reality like Gaza, you have no homes, you have no schools, you have no hospitals, and you live in tent city and you're bombed day in and day out, there will be mass exodus anyway from Gaza. He achieved his goal of basically, of rendering Gaza unlivable. The United Nations today and also World Health Organization point out to two things. We will start seeing pandemics in Gaza starting next month. Remember, there's thousands of bodies that are rotting under the rubble. Gaza was bombed for 7 months. They didn't only bomb, what they call Hamas tunnels. They bombed the sewage system. It's an open, like basically all the sewages are already outside. We've seen images of dead animals and dead bodies and animals eating the dead bodies of doctors, of nurses, of people. And people are so starving, they're eating those animals. So you're creating, whatever happened in Wuhan, the transition of the virus from animal to man, in Gaza, it's closer to Europe than any other place. In Gaza, you will see a pandemic exploding because you have a concentration of people who are starving and their immune system is depleted and they're eating whether dead animals or infected animals and living among corpses. What do you think this situation? So you have a humanitarian catastrophe, a health catastrophe, and strategic catastrophe, a military catastrophe, and a political catastrophe. Because when Biden intervened, little and late, but at least he intervened, I think it's already, creating an environment whereby the people who are behind Trump are so empowered because they can point out to Biden allowing Israel to cross every red line, to violate every international humanitarian law, including the Leahy law. And I think Democrats have to decide now, if you don't want Trump to win, and he is going to give carte blanche to Bibi to do whatever he wants, and he will abandon Ukraine, by the way, and he will embrace Russia and Putin, you have to think that it's now to actually stand up, not for Israelis or Palestinians, for international law and for enforcing America's law, especially the.
You froze for a second, but we'll clean this up.
Leahy law. Biden
All
have
right,
to stand up for the
okay, hang
Libyan
on one
law.
second. You froze 1 second there. So, but you're, I think we can freeze it where you said it. Matt can pick it up right from there. So that's fine. So let me reset here. I'm chatting with Rula Jabreal, award-winning journalist, specialized in foreign affairs. So, Hamas accepted a ceasefire that would have released the hostages, and it also would have resulted in the permanent ending of fighting. And Netanyahu rejected it. And it's kind of weird because at one point the U.S. was saying this is such a generous offer, and then Netanyahu says no, and then they go, "Oh, that wasn't the offer." But what we know is that the U.S. was involved in crafting this, and somehow Netanyahu's administration had some input. I don't know to what extent. What is your sense of why Netanyahu would say no to the ceasefire?
First of all, saving U.S. democracy requires enforcing the law. Netanyahu understands that very well, and he doesn't care about the law. He already undermined his own democracy at home way before October 7th by trying to bypass the judiciary and reform, the judicial coup. So if he can sabotage America's democracy, he can happily do it. We've seen him doing it before, so he doesn't care. What happened with the ceasefire, and people continue to lie on national television about the details of the ceasefire. Anybody that understand the Middle East understand that any word that was put on that document and that was proposed to Hamas, U.S. proposal to Hamas, with the Qataris' involvement, the Egyptian, was already shared with the Israelis. Egypt will not move 1 inch without the approval of Israel on every document, on every word. They've been doing this all along. They always did that. Whatever negotiation that Israel has with anybody in the region, not only they send their people. In this case, Netanyahu didn't send anybody to Doha, but I am confident his proxies in Cairo were informing him in real time. What he did not expect for Hamas actually to take the political decision, the strategic decision to say, we will give you you told us for months that the war would end if we would release the hostages. We want the war to end. We will release the hostages in stages. You will release our hostages, and you will not invade Rafah. This is where Netanyahu realized that he was basically finished politically, because his coalition would never accept that. Ben Gvir, the convicted terrorist, who today says that Biden and Hamas love each other, he doesn't want that, because their agenda is completely different from the United States and completely different from basically the overwhelming majority of the Israelis who probably want these hostages to get back. His agenda is ethnic cleansing. His agenda is depopulation. And this didn't start now. It started with Mir Kahana. They believe in that ideology. It started when he started praising Baruch Goldstein, who killed 29 Palestinians worshippers while praying in a mosque in 1994. He wants to ethnically cleanse the land from Palestinians. His agenda we're seeing the agenda being implemented inside Israel by basically demolishing the homes of Bedouin Israeli Palestinian citizens, and by basically killing everybody that opposed him in the West Bank, children, women, everybody. So you can see these are 3 conflicted agendas. Netanyahu wants to stay in power. He doesn't care about the hostages or ending the war. Actually, for him, the only achievement is to wipe out Gaza and Gazans. For Ben Gvir, he shared that idea. And Biden understands that the more footage of massacres and atrocities and babies blown up into pieces every day on national television is bad for Democrats and bad for his election perspective. He can understand and read actually the internal polls. In the internal polls suggest that Biden is going to lose. And he's going to lose precisely because he backed Netanyahu. So it's a time of choice. Either you save US democracy or you save Netanyahu's political survival and political life. Which one is more important? Saving democracy in the United States or saving Netanyahu's coalition, the people who call Biden pro-terrorists? So it's time to choose. And Biden is moving slowly, but he needs to act more decisively because he will never win these fanatics. What he can win
No,
what he
and
can
that's the
do.
point, right? You can't
Yes,
make everyone happy when you make a difficult political decision. What you should do is make the people who elected you happy and your base happy. The ones on the right, the
exactly.
Republicans, are upset with Biden now, saying no offensive weapons to the IDF. Well, they were never going to vote for Biden anyway. These people are
Exactly.
pro-genocide. Lindsey Graham's literally pro-genocide. Literally
Exactly.
pro-genocide. There's no doubt about it. Ben Gvir is in the Israeli cabinet, is pro-genocide. Smotrich, who's in the Israeli cabinet, just this week said annihilate, again using the word annihilate. And I try to
Yes.
remind people that yesterday on the show that Benjamin Netanyahu, right before the military went into Gaza, invoked Amaltrek from the Bible,
Yes.
which calls for a slaughter of everyone, including children. And he
Children
was upset
and
when they used that
animals.
against,
Yes.
right, when they used that against him in the hearings on is it
ICC.
a genocide or not, because
Yeah.
the one of the things is finding is there an intent to genocide. Well, he chose that. He could pick anything for the
Yes.
Bible. He picked that, and Smotrich picked it again this week, saying, invoking that because it calls for an annihilation,
Annihilate.
killing everything. So he did that. And here's where we are. And it's horrific. So what do you make of President Biden saying, and they reaffirmed it just a short time ago, this was not some mistake. This was not some senior moment, as Mike Johnson, the speaker, said, pro-genocide Johnson. So what do you make of Biden saying no offensive weapons and that we're not supporting going to Rafah? Could it have a difference? By the way, Netanyahu said, we'll go alone, but he's been saying that a
It
while.
will have a difference for US democracy and for the rule of law internationally, for the frameworks, the architecture that was produced precisely after World War II. Not because only the fascists and the way the fascists waged that war, but because allies themselves made mistakes. Hiroshima and Nagasaki, the killing of, the mass bombing of Dresden. By the way, Israel killed in 7 months more people than the Allies bombing of Dresden. Allies bombing of Dresden killed 25,000 people. Israel killed 40,000 people. And this is a conservative number because we have thousands that are buried under the rubble. So I think Biden can make really a strong case by coming out, saying, I supported you when you were attacked. I gave you, I defended you and shielded you at the United Nations, vetoed even initial ceasefires, 3 of them. But now it's about, now you're crossing the red line. And the red line is total eradication of Palestinians in Rafah and violation of international law and the Leahy law. He can make the case about protecting US law. It's about how his rationale is rooted in legality. And by the way, we've seen lawyers from the State Department issuing warning to the administration about major violations of international law and Leahy law by the use of US weapons. These reports have been leaking. They tried to sanction some units, and those weapons were not only used in Gaza, by the way, they were used in the West Bank when they killed children, when they killed a US citizen, when those units that operated and were accused of, legitimately and credibly accused of violating the Leahy law, are now operating in Gaza. Those same military units are operating in Gaza using these weapons. And you know how we know that? Because they're uploading videos and themselves bragging about their war crimes. So he can actually make the case and can win Michigan and can win certain important states by appealing to many people who said, look, I am firmly supportive of the fight against extremism, but you cannot win the war against extremists by violating international law, the Leahy law, and above all, by bombing civilians into oblivion. That actually strengthens the ideology that we are fighting. And we know that how? Because in Iraq, we didn't drop these weapons because we had a political solution to the issues of ISIS and Al-Qaeda in Iraq, and that was the surge. The surge was not a military surge. It was a political surge and a surge of ideas. We involved the Sunnis in fighting the extremists, but in exchange for that, we gave them independence, sovereignty, political power, and compensated them for all the damages of the war for years. So again, I think Biden has a strong case. He needs to come forth and strongly in defense of that case.
And today, a short time ago, White House National Security spokesman John Kirby said that going into Rafah is not going to achieve the goal of defeating Hamas. It's not
exactly.
And they're making it very clear. I had Congressman Jason Crow on about a month ago. He's a former U.S. Ranger, and said he had advised, don't do this. He goes, what you're doing, he served in Iraq, because this is just going to increase the number of people who can be radicalized because you're slaughtering innocent people. And of course, the natural inclination then would be you want revenge, especially when they're leaving him in this horrific situation.
You know, also who said that?
Who?
Ami Ayalon, the former head of Shabak. He
Wow.
said you cannot defeat Hamas militarily. Only a Palestinian state can eradicate and defeat Hamas. You know who else said that? Ehud Barak and Ehud Olmert, former prime ministers. Every head of security in Israel, Shin Bet, Shabak, Mossad, understand very well, and they did a documentary about it. And you know, the gatekeepers, I believe the name of the documentary, everyone on video stating that you cannot defeat Hamas militarily. There's no military solution. You have to address the underlying crisis with the Palestinians, which is their right to self-determination, their right to feel to be free. By the way, Saudi Arabia, it's not a big fan of Palestinians. The MBS, the ruler of Saudi Arabia, gave a proposition to the Israelis. We're willing to normalize with you and the occupation. And the occupation. Netanyahu told him no. Said, oh, you're endangering our security. The occupation and the mass slaughter and mass starvation is not keeping Israelis safe. Will actually create a generation of people who want vengeance, who want to avenge the mass slaughter of their children and grandchildren. And this is where terrorism thrives. This is when people like Al-Qaeda and ISIS and others thrive. You're giving them exactly what they want. You're playing into their hands.
I imagine there's going to be some UN Security Council resolution introduced shortly if Israel
tomorrow
continues towards Rafah. Oh, there is? So
Tomorrow there's a UN resolution introduced to recognize Palestine as a state and become a member state of the United Nations. I'm curious to see the US because they actually vetoed last time. But more importantly, I think it will send a signal to the world. Palestinians, especially Palestinians in the West Bank and elsewhere, continue to pursue a diplomatic solution, even in the midst of mass slaughter, in the midst of a genocide, of ethnic cleansing. We continue to pursue. If you keep closing that path to Palestinians, you are actually sending a message again and again and again that the only way to achieve our freedom, dignity, and defend ourselves is with violence. So it's time of choosing for the international community. I mean, Belgium, Spain, Ireland, many countries around the world are already recognizing the Palestinian states. We need to dismantle this idea that Israel military dictatorship is the only one that keeps Israel safe. It actually produces more violence, more extremism, and more death. And it's time for America to distance itself from that ethno-militaristic project of extremism and purity, and I'm sorry to say that, a racist project that you would never enact here in the United States, that you would never defend, except if you are Donald Trump. So if somebody want to vote and are thinking about the vote, I want to remind them that when Jacques Chirac in France, that was riddled with scandals, was running against Le Pen, father, and people are like troubling voting for Jacques Chirac. And the best slogan came out from his campaign saying, these are the choices, to vote for a crook or to vote for a fascist. We advise you to vote for the crook. I am not going to tell our American brethren how to vote, but the options are to vote for a fascist, which is Donald Trump, or to vote for an imperfect candidate who made major mistakes. I know what I would choose.
No, I understand. And that's a difficult decision for people in the community. And, I so applaud President Biden for doing what he did now with the weapons. I wish he had done it a long time ago, but he's evolved over this, not quick enough by any stretch. Before we started, you talked about the college protests, which have now simmered down because college is getting out, graduation's happening all over. But what was your reaction to people on the right and even some on the left smearing the protesters who were multiracial, multi-ethnic, multi-religion as being pro-Hamas?
Well, everybody is pro-Hamas if you criticize the actions of government and the policy of the government. I mean, they're conflating anti-Semitism with anti-war activism, and it's very dangerous because yesterday we have the cousin of Mir Kahana trying to kill students at Columbia University. No major news organization gave the news. And for me, it was shocking. Imagine if it was the other way around. the relative of terrorists, Muslim or Palestinian terrorists, trying to kill pro-Israeli protester, it would be wall to wall. And again, it's the same rationale. If I may go back to one thing, from day one, after October 7 attacks, we advised the administration to pressure Israel to comply with international law, not because we understood that the Israeli reaction with a desperate prime minister who wanted to cling to power and a traumatized nation, and especially a nation that was meant and made, the world made them feel that they are above reproach and above international law, can start committing mass slaughter and mass atrocities. I am happy that President Biden is now listening to this advice. I think it's about time, and it was important for him, because this is what the students are protesting about. They're not protesting only about the atrocity. They're protesting that they were not heard, that their taxes, their America is funding and enabling a genocide in Gaza, that while they were struggling to pay tuition, and many of them see that they don't have healthcare, they don't have a lot of benefits in the United States, they see a crumbling infrastructure, that the United States can find billions of dollars to deliver to an occupying power that is slaughtering civilians, slaughtering literally civilian and using mass starvation as a weapon of war. So people were angry because Biden defended US democracy against Trump, who's exactly like Netanyahu. But they're very confused also, and angry that Biden wouldn't defend the Leahy law, wouldn't enforce the Leahy law, wouldn't and very often dismiss the suffering of Palestinians and children. So they're very angry that we keep delivering weapons that we see in real time are deployed to kill people in tents, starving population, children, hospital, school, university. So people were upset, especially students who are well informed. So the only option for the other side was to smear them and criminalize them. By doing so, they endangered their lives. What we saw yesterday at Columbia with this Kahanist, the cousin of Kahana, trying to kill students, I fear we're crossing a threshold here. I fear these students' safety is endangered by the rhetoric of the people like ADL and others. And I feel sad to say this, some of our colleagues, especially on national television, calling these students Nazis and trying to not only smear them, are trying to depict them as, foreign infiltrators, Iran's proxy. I mean, that kind of rhetoric scares me, because I've seen this before. We know what this led to. We have incidents where people were killed. We have 3 Palestinian students shot. We have a child from Chicago who was stabbed 27 times. So hate crimes start with hate speech. And when you criminalize students, that's hate speech.
How do you see this ending in Gaza? Like, how does this come to an end? Or even though we can't choose it, what do you think is going to be the likely scenario, how this plays out?
It's hard even to put it in, to verbalize what I'm about to say. Netanyahu and his coalition are determined to wipe out Palestinians from Gaza. The final stage of the genocide just initiated, just started. They're going to carry out the mass slaughter of Rafah. America is, and nobody will be able to stop them, because so far they allow them to get away with every war crime and every crime against humanity. But by doing so, they're creating a precedent for every dictator, for every murderous thug around the world to say, if Israel did it and got away with it, we'll get away with it. That's very important now for the ICC to issue arrest warrants for Netanyahu, for Minister of Defense Gallant, for the Army Chief of Staff, and for everybody because you need to put them on notice that there will be accountability. You need to put them, and I hope the ICJ also start issuing serious provisional measures, museums about the genocide in Gaza. The time to save Gazans is now. And we're already failing because we're already 7 months of this ethnic cleansing campaign. So, Europeans can do much more. Germans and lip service will not suffice. We
Right.
need the ICC now to intervene. We need the ICJ now to intervene. We need to stop every weapon being delivered to Israel from Germany, from the United States. But above all, we need to start sanctioning Israeli officials. Without those measures, Israel society crossed all of it, by the way, crossed the threshold in considering what they're doing as a legitimate warfare. It is not. It is illegal, it's immoral, and it's politically dangerous. And it's, in terms of security, as you said, it's going to, it's going to open the door for all kind of terrorist attacks. So again, I think we have now those moments, those hours, those days before they start the full invasion. And once that starts, I think it's game over. I think the world that will exist after Gaza is a world that terrifies me, Dean. A world where a rogue state, which Israel is now considered a rogue state, a lawless state, will continue to operate and import the rule in Gaza and the war, the onslaught of Gaza to the West Bank, because they decided they don't want any more to deal with Palestinians. And they will take this to the next level in the West Bank. We are seeing it in Tulkarem, in Jenin, in Ramallah, where they're going with bulldozers and breaking the roads. They're making the life of Palestinian hell everywhere, in Nablus, in everywhere. They even attacked Palestinian Christians in their church in Jerusalem during the celebration of the Easter, of the Orthodox Easter. They arrested the bodyguards of the Greek ambassador simply because he said, "Can you please step aside, street?" If you see yesterday the images I seen of how they treated the hostages' families, they were brutalizing them in Tel Aviv and beating them up in Jerusalem. We are watching a fascist regime, a fascist government, showing the world how they act against their own citizens and against others. And it's time to stop them. It's time to activate the arsenal of diplomacy and measures that we have to stop them now. Alternatively, it's not only Palestinians that will be suffering. The Middle East, America's reputation, America's credibility, which already suffered a lot, and America's national security and America's own democracy.
Well, my friend Rula, I want to thank you for going along with us and going in great detail.
Thank you.
It's a heartbreaking situation and it gets worse, but I appreciate you giving us some historical look and also the bigger picture of how it affects the United States as well and our own reputation and how it could inspire other dictators around the world to copy what Netanyahu's doing, going, well, look, America, you don't have a problem with that. So why do they have a problem with us? So Rula, thanks so much. Stay safe, my friend. I look forward to chatting with you in the future.
Thank